Here I am live from my laundry room. Yes, I'm in my laundry room. I've created a little desk area for myself, literally in the box room. It feels like a return to lockdown ways, but you know what? For the last week, I've been getting up early at 5 o'clock and bring myself here. The reason I created this little space for myself is because I can boil the kettle with the door closed and not disturb everyone. And I was finding that although I have a shed that I can work in the garden, that I was resisting getting up because it was just trogging up the garden in the cold, in the dark. Of course, now it's summer, sometimes it's even inviting, but somehow it felt a bit like an obstacle. Over the last week, I've been getting up with a friend of mine, meeting online and doing a beautiful morning ritual. We each do our own thing. Mine is to drink cocoa, to get on the yoga mat for 15 minutes and do anything or nothing, to do my food journal. This is a tool that I use to work with food psychology clients. It's really a head planner, thinking through the obstacles of your eating in the day. And even after 25 years of binge recovery, I'm finding this process really valuable. There's also a journaling section that takes just 3 minutes and a positive evaluation section. So these are things which are nourishing me immensely. If you haven't met me before, I'm Laura Lloyd. I'm a coach, a life coach who works with eaters mostly over the last 10 years, but I take quite a therapeutic approach to coaching eating. Binge eating and overeating, struggles with weight, usually come hand in hand with some therapeutic work to try and understand where the huge pressures we're putting on ourselves are and what are we avoiding in our lives. Because if we're avoiding feeling things by distracting ourselves with food, the chances are we have avoidant patterns in other places in our lives. So I've made myself some coffee. Today I want to talk about something that has been a theme of this week. And that is storytelling. And really, I get these bugs where I go and I research. And this has been an important part of my coaching journey and my personal development journey in a way, because it allows me to, I think I'm looking for tools and angles to approach, eating from, but also to approach therapy from. And I'm trying to figure out who I would like to be as a coach and a therapist. Oh my God. Bit of an overflow situation going on here. Let's just let that go through for a second. I don't know anyone else who makes coffee in this way. My mum once gave me a metal coffee pot when I was setting off on a road trip. She said her brother had given it to her when he went to college. And all of that road trip, we made coffee on camping situations just by putting a very generous spoonful of coffee granules into a coffee pot and pouring on boiling water and allowing it to settle. She said her German housekeeper, when she was a kid, they hired a German housekeeper and she always made coffee this way, and it seems to be completely without fuss. And it doesn't matter when I stay at someone else's house and we try their espresso machines and their different things, this still seems to make the most robust coffee. It does, however, use a lot more granules than most people use, so we rip through a few packets in a week. So as I'm always looking for different tools, and I feel like over the last couple of years, as I started taking food psychology into workshop situations, I started to try and marry some of the creativity and joy that I found that led me into theatre with a food psychology process. And that's like, for me, that's quite uncharted territory. I mostly see workshops around mindful eating, and I mostly see food psychology as something that's very much done in a workbook or a journal, with a coach perhaps. I see some more somatic work and parts work and tapping being used. And a couple of things happened that brought me into wanting to explore the live experience more. The journey looked like this. I went on a retreat with Anna Lompriere and Tara Ellis. Anna Lompriere is a Kundalini yogi and a TED Talk teacher and has her own framework for bringing forth from each person a very soul-led speech about your area of expertise and your talents and strengths. And Tara is a shamanic practitioner, and they know each other from theatre school, so they have this sort of performance connection. Tara brings a lot of laughter also to the process, and getting together a group of women in that way, so bonding, so beautiful. If you want to do their program, it's called Speak You, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So this was a live experience. We all went to a stately home, Buconic, and really dug into nature and asked, in Anna's words, she said, we're going to ask source. We're going to ask source energy to guide us. She is an extremely spiritual person and is studying to be a multi-faith minister. And we went on a shamanic quest, and she took us through a whole process where we wrote this talk, and then we performed the talks. And the bonding in that group of women was so good. I loved it. And I loved the live experience and the sense of belonging and the sense of being on a journey, a quest together. Very, very powerful. And I've been going to Butterfield Festival for a couple of years, which is also an amazing kind of community feeling. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do some workshops at Butterfield. So I did that last year on hypnosis for self-esteem and stopping numbing. I started to run workshops on emotional eating in my local village hall. And it's really taken me on quite a journey. This year I organised an International Women's Day weekend festival with Anna Lombriere, and we had a speakathon as part of that, where people gave 5-minute talks. Women gave 5-minute talks, and some of them were women themed, and then we facilitated conversation in between the talks. And I think we'll work more together on coaching people in some talk giving, speech making. It's all reminded me of, one of the things about doing the International Women's Day event was collaborating with a theatre that's just establishing itself in Helston, being in a theatre space with a stage. Now that theatre space that we were using is an old chapel, so it's quite given to sermonising. And afterwards, some people were like, we should host a cabaret here, we should put on a show here. And I was remembering my theatre making days, and there were a couple of formats that really stuck for me in the theatre that I made. One was to use slides, some of them animated and hand-drawn illustrations, and to tell stories over the top. One was to use an overhead projector to create images and to tell stories alongside. But really, my style was quite storytelling-y, poetic. And this week, I've been thinking a lot about that. There was a performance style that was used quite a lot in London at the time called Pecha Kucha, and is a format where you create 20 slides and you have 20 seconds per slide. It's fast and it's funny and it can be weird if you use it in an arty way. It's a way to invigorate a PowerPoint presentation and to give people a sort of adrenaline shot of your topic, whatever that is, to take them on a roller coaster. And it's exciting to watch because people are flying by the seat of their pants, trying to keep up with the timings. And so this is all sort of coming together. This is my story about stories. This week I've been was introduced by a friend in the village to the Moth, and the Moth seems to be a live storytelling event that kicked off in New York, and now there are ones in London and other major cities. They have a sort of big, longer story form and a short form, a story slam, and they have a podcast where you can hear a lot of stories from people. And it's all predicated, what I love about it is it's predicated on the idea that your story needs to be a true story from your life. And they give you a little bit of a map or a structure to work with. I love this. And it's made me really feel like I would love to gather women, particularly, into storytelling in this way. The friend that I was talking to in the village, Tom, I've worked with in a previous job. Tom is a journalist, a teacher of photojournalism, and a photographer. And he was telling me about a photographic process that he's using to work with people to tell the story of their mental ill health. When I worked with Tom, we took on a project to try and photograph disability in a way that the disabled people themselves were able to create image representations and photo essays about their work lives and their disability, where they were in charge of the image. So it was very empowering, and they were choosing the words. Tom was talking about doing this with men and mental health, but actually creating an environment. I'm just wondering whether I should share much about his process, or whether he feels like that's his intellectual property. But perhaps I can just say that he was using long exposure cameras to create with people an image and then develop it in a dark room, and that their process of watching their own image develop in the developing chemicals. And I remember, so this touched me because my dad was a photographer with a darkroom, and I was forever watching him rocking images in the solutions and the fixer and the developer, and they'd have trays of liquid, and the photo paper goes in, and you rock them, and then little by little a faint image appears, and then it comes forth. So some of these images that I have here were taken. So that is the darkroom image. Oh, look, those stuck together to soak them apart. And that's a darkroom image. You can see that one is slightly underexposed. It's a bit pale. It's not a brilliant print. And there's a sort of better print. That they were taken and developed in my dad's darkroom by a boyfriend I had who got into using that process. Tom was saying that this process of watching your own image develop was itself, a moment for people, a moment of looking at their own image longer than we would normally let ourselves. And I definitely thought there was a process there around body image that could be so helpful and useful for people. And so I was telling Tom about these Pecha Kucha nights, and how I wanted people to get into storytelling, and he introduced me to the idea of the moth. And that seems to work perfectly for me. I've been creating a women's circle over the last couple of years in my village, and it's really a circle of truth. Everybody has 4 minutes to speak their truth, and truth telling, autobiography, story, telling true stories from our lives. It feels ancient. It feels affirming. This is something that AI cannot do for us, really speak to our true experience, what we've lived, our unique perspective. And so I've been looking at narrative therapy, and I've been wondering how to bring storytelling more into the world as a transformational act and experience. And I'm really curious to see where this takes me. So, how about you? Where do you encounter true stories in your life, in conversations with your friends, around the dinner table, stories from the day? Do you write a journal? Do you read books where somebody else's true story has transformed or galvanized you? Last week I went to see The Salt Path with my mum at the cinema, and we both read that book, and that book would not be so touching if Gaynor and what's her husband called? He's got a really distinctive name that I've forgotten. Moth. Of course, Moth again. Gaynor and Moth hadn't really lived that, living on 40 quid a month or whatever, living on super noodles, walking, the threat to Moth's health, losing everything financially. It's a brilliant story. The stakes are high and it's real. And yeah, it's, so when you read a story that's true, how does that move you? Because for me, that story started me walking the coast path again, which is on my doorstep, so it's really relevant to me, but also brought me back into touch with what's really important in life, and how chasing this edifice of house, career, and all of that is an illusion, and that there is life in us beyond that. So what stories have you encountered from other people who've been an example to you, or have led you to believe differently, giving you perspective in your life?